This is my guest, Michael Ramos, and Michael is a musician that I met years ago, and he has worked with so many musicians. I just want him to tell his story.
About a week before that tour was supposed to start, I get a phone call from this record company that I had been kind of doing sessions for and producing for, and they offered me a job, um, managing one of their bands. And I really didn't want to do it. I'm not really a
Yeah,
manager. I never managed, and even though I understood what a manager's role is, it just wasn't something that appealed to me. But my wife told me that I better make it appeal to me, because as soon as that tour was over, I was going to be unemployed. So I took the job, and that job just grew. So now I'm the managing director of the label. I just kept moving up the company, and it's been great financially. I don't really have to worry about much. But back to my friend, when I was on that Sean Colvin tour, I was out in California, and this is a lifelong friend, mind you. She was an ex-girlfriend, and she's like a sister to me. And I was telling her about it. She said, "Wow, stuff just always seems to fall in your lap." And I didn't say anything, but honestly, it really pissed me off, because I was like, you know what? I have busted my ass. Yes, I'm lucky, but I'm lucky, I think, because I've just always busted my ass and done what I was
yeah,
supposed to do. So, I would say it's maybe 10% talent, like 90%
well,
luck of anything, and but I have to admit, I
well,
got pissed
I would
off.
say also, I'd say rightfully so at one level, because I know you worked over the years talking to you on the road. Being on the road myself, was never on the road nearly as much as you, but that's a hard life, and most people think it's wow, I'd like to do that, I'd like to do that, but it can be really lonely, as you know, and
Oh yeah.
it lacks something with roots and stability. But it is a great experience at the same time. I think everything contains its opposite at one level, and those are things that just you can't stay there too long, though, because it really kind of uproots you from having any semblance of connection many times, I think.
Oh, I mean, to kind of put it into perspective, you know, let's just say you're on tour, Fourth of July weekend or Memorial Day weekend, and you're doing some big outdoor festival, and you see tens of thousands of people, and you see families on their blankets sipping wine, having cheese and
Right,
crackers, and and
right,
they're with their families, and that's just
yeah,
a really shitty feeling, because you're like, I
right,
want to be home with
right.
my family, you know.
And then at the same
Um,
time, you don't. You want to
and
be there
and
because that's your passion too. It's a real pull.
well, on that particular day, but on that particular day, I would rather be with my
Yeah,
family,
yeah,
you know. Um, I mean, and I have traveled and toured in every capacity you could imagine. Beat up station wagon with all the gear on top, and the station wagon's leaning back this because it's so heavy. All the way up to private jets and Ritz Carltons. And after a while, it doesn't really matter. You would just want to go
yeah,
home.
yeah.
Now, you want to go home a lot worse when you're staying at the Thrifty Eight Super Econo Lodge, you know. But
Very true.
I finally got to the point. It's like, as long as it's got good internet and it's clean and it's got a nice TV and it's close to some nice restaurants, I didn't care where I
Yeah,
stayed.
yeah.
You know.
I used to try to
Um,
get in a zone and just kind of just not think about home or things like that. Just because it was easier that way to be on the road when I was
yeah.
gone a lot. So
I didn't tour for the first 4 years of my son's life, and I finally got an offer to go back on tour with the Bodines, of all things. And I remember it just broke my heart, because I remember the day I had to leave. And I remember after about 5 days, my wife called and she put my 4-year old son on the phone, and he said, "Daddy, when are you coming home?" And I said, I'll be home in, 8 more sleeps. And he just said, Daddy, that's too long. You have to come home now. And I was just like, shit. So then what I started doing, if I was gone more than 2 weeks, we'd have like Sunday nights and Monday nights off. Those are the 2 slowest nights of the week in the music business. So I would fly home on Sunday, and then I'd fly out first thing in the morning on Tuesdays. And after doing that 4 or 5 times, my wife just said, look, I know you're trying to stay engaged with us, but it's almost harder because when you're gone, then he kind of gets in his little zone, and then you come back and it reminds him that you're leaving again. And I was like, oh God. So on that particular tour, I had to just slug it out for the last month and not see them,
Yeah. And that's really hard, especially he changes so much in a month back then, didn't he?
Oh God.
Yeah.
Every time I'd see him like on a FaceTime call or something, it would just make me really happy. It would just break my heart.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I would finish playing, I would immediately, if we were leaving or whatever we were doing for staying in the hotel, I would immediately go and try to fall asleep as soon as I could, because the sooner I fell asleep, then it was the next day and I would have that day behind me.
Wow.
And looking back on it, that's not a very good way to approach life. Go to sleep as soon as you can so this day's
Get
over.
through it. Yeah. That's also your artist heart. I think artists love a little more deeply. Someone asked me the other day, what's the key to any good artist? And I said, pain. I just think it is. And that's part of it. It's when there's real pain.
Pain and love. It doesn't always have to be pain. It can just be intense love.
Yeah, it can. But
whether that's for your life partner or a child.
Yeah.
Or a dog.
But I think that's just it. I see artists as having the extremes in those feelings. Deep love, deep pain. That's my experience of most artists.
Yeah.
They're really great.
Deep passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us an inspiring story or someone you find inspiring who's really pulled you up and something that really inspired you maybe a different person.
Oh, that I've worked with personally?
Anything. Just in life.
Who's really inspiring to me is Paul McCartney.
How so?
I've never met him.
Okay.
Well, I already loved music, and my dad loved music. And even in the times of my teenage years where we didn't get along, we still had that music connection, So, like a lot of people my age, a lot of musicians my age, the Big Bang was seeing the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. And we watched that together. And from that moment on, I wanted to be, I knew I wasn't going to be in the Beatles, but I wanted to hang out with them all the time, and anything with a picture of the Beatles on it or a Beatles record. My dad loved music, so he had all these Beatles records. And even as I got into high school, when Paul McCartney went off to, start Wings, one of my buddies and I skipped out of school. I was a junior in high school, and he was playing at the Summit Wings Over America tour. And we went down there and we got in line. It was open seating, and they opened the doors. We waited in line, like I said, for about 3 hours, and then we just ran through the arena, and we were up there really close. And I just remember when the spotlights hit him, I was just in awe, and he inspires me because even in this day and age, he's still trying to make his career work. The one guy who doesn't have to do it anymore, and he's out there doing it like he's still struggling. And I love that about him. And, I also work in this project now, and it's kind of, it's a super group, and I'm lucky to be in it. You want to talk about lucking into a gig? It's Jim Irsay. He is the Jim Irsay Foundation. He is the owner of the Indianapolis Colts.
Okay.
And he has a music collection that he tours with, he's trying to find a home for it. And I mean, I don't even want to tell you how much this collection is worth, but they're along with all the instruments like he's got Jimi Hendrix guitar, George Harrison's guitar, John Lennon's guitar, Bob Dylan's guitar, Ringo's drum set. I got to sit behind Ringo's drum set. I'll send it to you. And there's like an original copy of the Declaration of Independence. It's got like all this really, Muhammad Ali memorabilia and stuff, but I get to play in this group, and it's Kenny Aronoff. I mean, full circle, the drummer from Mellencamp from back in the day. And Mike Wanchik, who's the band leader for Mellencamp, and that's how I got the gig. And the guy named Kenny Wayne Shepherd and Mike Mills from REM, and this guy Tom Bukovac from Nashville, who's like the top Nashville session guy who's played with everybody. So I get to play with these guys about every other month, and that is great, but again, Paul McCartney has been such a huge influence. When the Beatles first started, I wanted to be Ringo, and I remember one of my very first gigs with John Mellencamp was on the David Letterman show. During the first week, he was at the Ed Sullivan Theater, and this was just before cell phones. And after the sound check, well, when nobody was looking, it was on the same stage as the Ed Sullivan Theater, where the Beatles played. So I kind of like in my mind, was memorizing where they all stood, and I went and stood, and I try to make it kind of inconspicuous, like, okay, here's your Paul McCartney,
Exactly.
And I went and stood back where Ringo's drums would have been. And I remember going out to the lobby and calling my dad and saying, hey, guess where I am? He's like, where? I said, I'm at the Ed Sullivan Theater he knew I was going to be on Letterman that night. But I was like, this is the same stage where we saw the Beatles. And he was like, wow, he was really impressed by that. But, even to this day, every once in a while, I'm like, what am I going to listen to? And I'll just put on Paul McCartney's greatest hits or the Beatles.
That's great. I think, it doesn't matter when that inspiration hits. That's also fans the flame. Just that story, I can just imagine what that did for your confidence, and really probably just drove you another couple of years just from that moment.
Maybe, I'm sure, and I hear that, and it's just, there's so much genius there, there's a documentary that came out with Paul McCartney, and there's like 4 episodes of Paul McCartney and Rick Rubin, and I think it's on Amazon Prime, or it might be on Hulu, I can't remember, but they go and they have the original tapes and they play them, and Paul McCartney gives commentary, and they'll solo certain instruments like his bass part and his bass and the drums. And, he says, back then when we were doing it, I didn't stop to think about it. He goes, but it's been so far back now, I can listen to it as a fan. And I thought that was, I hope I feel like that when I'm his age. I think he turns 80 this year.
Wow, that is amazing.
And it is amazing, I one time on one of the tours that I did with Mellencamp, Donovan.
I
don't know if you
remember that.
Donovan, but he had a lot of hits back in the
Yep.
in the 60s. He was actually there with the Beatles and Mia Farrow and Mike Love from the Beach Boys, and all the Beatles were there with the Maharishi. So of course, he had to ride on somebody's bus, and we had like 2 different, band tour buses. And so me and my buddy made sure that he was on our bus. There was the quiet bus with the older people in the band, and they'd watch movies, and but on our bus we listened to the Rolling Stones, and we were like wild and raucous, and he was on our bus. And of course I just germed him with all my Beatles questions, and just listening to him tell all his stories. I'd ask him questions about, um, do you remember that song, They Call Me
Oh
Mellow
yeah,
Yellow, And I was asking him about that song. He was telling me how they came up with the little trumpet part in the middle and everything. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that inspires me. And you just realize that all musicians are the same
yeah.
pretty much. At least the passionate ones are.
Well, I remember you invited me out to Lake Travis one time, and you used to have jam sessions with a lot of people from Austin.
Oh
I
yeah.
think Charlie and Will Sexton were out there. Patty Griffin was out there. And I think when I went out there, you said everyone has to have an instrument to play if you come out. And I was like, buddy, I can't do it. You said, okay, you can go ahead and come out. So I got to sit
Yeah,
there.
right.
It was like one of the most inspirational. I did it 2 different times, I think, but that was one. I still look back. That was amazing. Listening to people just create music. It's just beautiful to me. Now, let me ask you.
The really cool thing is when musicians make music for each other as opposed to an
Yeah,
audience.
yeah.
That's when the good stuff happens.
You're right.
You know.
You're right. And it just and just messing around. Oh, throw me that. Changing instruments. I mean, just
Yeah.
all those people could just play so many different instruments.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. No, we're not going to record it.
Yeah,
No, we're not going to take
exactly.
pictures.
Exactly.
No,
Be in the
it's,
moment. Exactly. Be in the moment. We don't have.
I'd be
to.
like, you can't come. You can't come.
Exactly.
I had a friend. He's like, hey, you want to bring some recording gear? I'm like, no. And if you do, you got to leave.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah. No, I felt so happy to be out there and be able to experience that because with no musical talent, but boy, I could appreciate it. Now, let me ask you, where do you see? Are you gonna focus just on producing? Not just on producing. Are you focus on producing? Are you out actively trying to find new musicians? What are you doing now, and where do you want to go with it?
Well, one thing I learned was that if you're going to be in the music business for a long time, you have to diversify. So it's all these different things. I still want to produce. I work for the record company, so I kind of always have my eye out for the next band that I want to pursue to sign. And I'm just really hoping that my film score, work and my podcast scoring work continues because I really like doing that because the only asshole I have to deal with in the studio in those projects is me. So I don't have to be a babysitter. I don't have to listen to, oh, my car broke down or, oh, my boyfriend sucks, my girlfriend sucks,
Yeah, you don't have to deal with all that. You can just handle it. Well, let me ask you
Right.
something. What is one question you wish I would have asked you today that I haven't?
Geez, that's a deep one. A question that I wish you had asked me.
Yeah.
Um, what new equipment have you gotten? That's no. I mean, that would be boring for people, but yeah, no.
That's good.
That is one of my tricks. If I get writer's block, I buy a new piece of gear,
Ah, does that help you?
and then I'll sit. Oh my God, yeah. My wife even knows. Like I'll say, hey, honey, I really want to buy this keyboard. And she'll say, how much is it? And I tell her, and she's like, what? And then she'll kind of stop for a second. Do you think it'll help you finish the songs on your solo record? Yeah. Okay, go ahead and buy it.
That's awesome. That's a great way. I've got to figure that one out. That's good.
Yeah.
So back to the question though. Anything you would really have liked to have told people, maybe about inspiration, maybe your family? I don't know. Just anything you would like to say.
Well, I would like to say, first of all, thank you for having me here, but I feel really, really lucky and blessed because, I mean, my career and life could have turned out completely different. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time at key points in my life. And when I was a kid growing up, all I could think about was doing what I do now. That's all I wanted to do. I had, when I was a senior in high school, for instance, I got that scholarship, and man, my mind was, I was like, ooh, I'm on my way. This is gonna be great. And my mom, one day just said, "So, son, what do you want to do with your life now? Now that you're graduating from high school, what's your plan?" And I said, "Oh, Mom, it's going to be great. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to transfer to the University of Miami," because that was like a great music school at the time. Still is, I would imagine. "And I am going to be a touring musician. I'm going to make records. I'm going to be a producer. Um, I am going to be on TV. I'm going to have a house in Miami. I'm going to have a house in LA. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be in all these famous bands." And she said, "Son, that's a really beautiful plan. But I just want you to know that not everything in life turns out the way you think it's going to turn out." And she was right. She was really right. It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to be rich. I mean, I've achieved everything except becoming rich, which was, that was the one thing I left out. Yeah, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to make all this money, you know. But I've done the rest of it, and I'm really grateful for that. And, I keep saying how lucky I am, but I really, with every ounce of my being, feel really lucky. Even for the bad stuff.
Yes.
Can I say shit? Even for the bad shit. And a lot of it was bad shit. There were years sitting around, literally staring at the phone, willing it to ring. But it's been a really cool, fun career. I've gotten to meet some of my heroes, work with some of my heroes, and sometimes I'll be sitting there having a conversation with somebody, some famous person calls me, or playing with them, looking across the room is like, how did I get here? And I did a live film score once at the Paramount, and it was really sweet that there's a group of girls that I graduated with, and they still hang out together, and they call themselves the Seven Sisters. And they came to my show at the Paramount, and the leader of the group, I love her. Her name's Mo. First thing out of her mouth when I'm coming in for the hug, she goes, wait, before you hug me, how did you get here? I'm like, I was about to ask you the same thing. How did I get here? I don't know how, and that's the advice I give young musicians. You just got to keep doing it, and sooner or later it will happen for you. Most people give up before it happens, but I firmly believe if you're really good and you have the passion.
Yeah. Well, I've also found fate, destiny, whatever will challenge you. Are you going to stand for your dream? I've had that before. I almost turned back a couple of times and went my old way, and I was like, no, I can't do it. And every single time when I did that, I've been honored for stepping into that space of not knowing and just staying with it. But it's hard to do because everything else tells you, oh, here's where the money is. Here's where the money is, And it's like, that's not going to feed my soul, though. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I hear you about turning back. Like, there have been 2 or 3 major points in my life where I tried to quit the music business. And that when I moved back to Austin, I was going to quit. I was sick of the music business. And within 2 weeks of quitting, I got the gig with Mellencamp and the Rembrandts. And, I realized that it wasn't the music business or the music that I didn't like. I just didn't like my current situation, And then there was another time back, like in the, I would say mid-aughts, I thought my career was over. And I remember calling our friend Matthew O'Hare and just saying, Matt, I think my career's done, And he and I had gone to hear Robert Plant play at Stubbs, and he goes, "I don't know, Michael. There seemed to be like a lot of really old guys the other night on stage with Robert Plant." And then by default, he and Patty Griffin got married, and I ended up working with Robert and Patty together briefly, and and then again the pandemic. I was like, okay, it's done, and my career. I mean, I am better off now than at any point ever in my career, ever, financially, um, um, being relevant, doing all this stuff,
And you've got a
again,
great
lucky.
family that kind of has you grounded as well. And that's amazing. I'm glad
Yeah.
for you. And no, that's why I wanted you on, because you've always been so, you keep saying lucky. I keep saying you're appreciative. I think you are appreciative of your talents, appreciative of, and yeah, it's been hard, but you've always been an inspiration to me, how you've continue to follow your passion. And
Oh,
that's another thing. You're one of the people I thought of when I thought about going back to what I was doing at one time. And I thought, no, I can't do this. I saw you living your passion. It was like, I want to do that. So that's who you've been for me. I wanted to say thank you.
oh, well, thank you. I mean, you've helped me out so much through the years, and you had a lot to do with me following my passion because there were times when you were a lot more appreciative of it than I was. And I've always had this bar for myself, and it's like as long as my career was going like this, or at the very least like this, but mostly like this, I would stay in it. The minute it was going like that,
Right.
I'm out. And my wife said to me, oh, maybe 6 months ago, 8 months ago, she said, I've been thinking maybe, she said, I would like to see you retire here in a couple of years. And I was like, what? You know, um, I mean, I'd probably keel over. I don't, I mean, you know what? I would find something else and throw myself into it as deeply as I've done this. She's thinking she's going to get her husband back. I mean, all of a sudden, like, I open a business and I'm making snowshoes or something stupid. But,
Well, she knows how hard you work, and that's what I think she's saying, because I know you work hard, and but I love that you do. I love that you've created different things throughout your lifetime, and I hope you just keep creating, and I know you will. I don't see you ever stopping. I think that would be kind of a cheating something out there, because I believe you've always got something to produce out there.
well, thank you very much. I hope you're right.
Oh, I know I am. You are, you are. It oozes out of you because that's your creativity. So, yeah, and I
Thank
know
you.
you get tired at times, but I'm still rooting for you.
Oh, thank you very much. Keep
Yeah,
rooting for me.
thanks.
I need it.
I will. I will.